Most people think concrete is solid. That is the first mistake. Concrete is a sponge. It breathes, it drinks, it expands and it contracts. It is a living skin stretched over a skeleton of rebar and tension cables. If you listen closely enough, you can hear it groaning as the sun hits it, expanding the capillaries, shifting the load from the pylons to the anchors. I was sitting on my porch a half-mile downriver from the new Apex Bridge, listening to the monster wake up. It was a cool morning, the kind of sharp, brittle air that carries sound for miles. I wasn't looking at the bridge. I didn't need to. I could feel it through the soles of my boots. I could feel it in the glass of water sitting on the railing. The water was vibrating. Not a chaotic splash, but a distinct concentric ripple pattern. A standing wave. Ring, ring, ring. I am 71 years old. To the neighbours, I am Bill, the retired construction worker who fixes their lawn mowers and spends too much time whittling useless shapes out of cedar blocks. To the state licensing board, if they bothered to check the microfiche from 1974, I am William Taggart. They called me the Iron Ghost back then. I was the man they called when the math said a bridge should stand, but gravity disagreed. I was the one who redesigned the Interstate 5 interchange on a napkin in a bar because the official blueprints forgot about the shear waves of a magnitude 7 earthquake. They scrubbed my name from the records because I refused to sign off on cheap steel. They wanted budget. I wanted survival. So I disappeared. I bought this shack by the river. I whittle. And I listen. My grandson Lucas drove up the gravel driveway. His truck was too clean. It was a Raptor, polished to a mirror shine, a truck that had never hauled a load of gravel in its life. Lucas hopped out. He was wearing a hard hat that was dazzlingly white, his safety vest crisp and unwrinkled. He held an iPad like a shield. He was 29, the project lead for the Apex Bridge, the youngest chief engineer in the firm's history. He was brilliant. He could run a finite element analysis in the cloud in seconds. He could simulate a hurricane in 4K resolution. But he had never felt a rivet shear under his thumb. "Morning, Grandpa!" he shouted, bounding up the steps. "Big day. The load test. Are you coming down to watch?" I didn't look up from the block of cedar I was shaving. "I can watch from here, Lucas. The view is better. I can see the wind." Lucas laughed, shaking his head. "Always the mystic. Look, I brought you the final specs. I thought you'd be impressed. We came in 12% underweight." He tapped the screen of his iPad and shoved it in my face. A 3D model of the bridge spun around. It was a beautiful thing, I had to admit. A single-span suspension bridge. Sleek, thin, elegant, too thin. "Composite polymer decking," Lucas bragged. "Carbon fibre cables. It's lighter than steel, Grandpa. It floats. We reduced the dead load by 4,000 tons." I stopped whittling. I looked at the screen, then at the real bridge looming over the canyon. It looked like a ribbon. A delicate white ribbon tied between two mountains. "It's too light," I said, my voice gravelly. "It's efficient," Lucas corrected. "Why use heavy concrete when you can use aerospace composites?" "Because mass is dampening," I said. "Mass is silence. You built a feather, Lucas, and you put it in a wind tunnel. The simulations say it's stable up to 150 miles per hour," Lucas said, scrolling through colourful graphs. "The aerodynamics are perfect. The cross-section is shaped like an airfoil to reduce drag." I stood up. My knees popped. I walked to the railing and picked up the glass of water. The ripples were still there. distinct, rhythmic. It has no throat, I said. Throat! Lucas frowned. That's not an engineering term. It is if you want it to sink, I said. A bridge needs a throat. It needs weight to swallow the vibration. If you make it too light, too tight, it stops being a bridge and starts being a guitar string. You've tuned it, Lucas. You've tuned it to a pitch. Lucas sighed, tucking the iPad under his arm. Grandpa, I love you, but you're thinking in 1970s physics. We have active mass dampers. We have hydraulic pistons. We have sensors that adjust the tension in milliseconds. The cloud manages the load. It's uncrashable. Nothing is uncrashable, I said softly. Titanic, Tacoma Narrows, Challenger, they all had perfect math. I have to go, Lucas said, checking his smartwatch. The trucks are lining up, 50 dump trucks, 300 tons of sand. We're going to park them right in the centre span. It's going to be a hell of a photo op. Watch the news. He turned and jogged down the stairs. Wish me luck. I wish you heavy weather, I muttered. But he was already in his truck, blasting the air conditioning, sealed off from the world. I sat back down. I picked up the knife. I didn't carve. I watched the water. An hour later, the spectacle began. From my vantage point, the bridge looked like a toy set. I could see the line of the yellow dump trucks crawling onto the deck. They moved slowly, a procession of ants. The news helicopters buzzed overhead, little dragonflies adding to the noise. I could imagine the scene down there. The politicians shaking hands, the champagne, the sheer arrogance of thinking you can conquer a canyon with an iPad. The trucks reached the centre span. They stopped. I waited. The physics of a suspension bridge are a conversation between gravity and tension. The gravity pulls the deck down. The cables pull the deck up. When the trucks parked, the bridge dipped. I saw it. A slight sag. Perfectly normal. The cables stretched. The pylons compressed. The bridge accepted the weight. Lucas was probably cheering right now. His sensors would be showing green lights. The deflection was within tolerance. But I wasn't looking at the deflection. I was looking at the wind. The apex canyon is not a normal valley. It is a funnel. The wind doesn't just blow through it. It compresses. It pulses. It accelerates. And today, the wind was coming from the north, hitting the bridge at a 45-degree angle. I put my hand on the railing of my porch. The wood was old, seasoned oak. It was a good conductor. It started low, subsonic. You couldn't hear it with your ears, but you could feel it in your teeth. A vibration. 0.5 hertz. I looked at the water glass. The concentric rings were distorting. They were becoming ovals, then figure eights. Harmonic, I whispered. The bridge was vibrating, not up and down. That would be simple. It was vibrating torsionally. It was twisting. I grabbed my binoculars. I focused on the centre span. The trucks were parked in a straight line, dead centre. A perfect line of heavy mass on a lightweight composite deck. The wind hit the side of the bridge. Because the deck was shaped like an airfoil, as Lucas bragged, it created lift. The bridge wanted to fly, but the trucks wanted to fall. Up, down, twist. The frequency increased. 0.8 hertz. This is the devil's note. The resonant frequency of steel under high tension. It's singing, I said, standing up. The cedar block fell from my lap. Through the binoculars, I saw the first sign of failure. The vertical suspender cables, The thin wires connecting the main cable to the deck were going slack, then snapping tight, slack, tight, slack, tight, snap, snap, snap. It looked like a whip cracking. "Lucas," I hissed, "look at the cables. Don't look at the iPad. Look at the wires." But he wouldn't be looking. He would be looking at the strain gauges, which averages the data over time. The sensors were smoothing out the peaks. The cloud was lying to him. The wind picked up, gusts of 40 miles per hour. Not a hurricane, just a stiff breeze. But it was rhythmic. It was pushing the bridge exactly when it swayed away, like a parent pushing a child on a swing, adding energy, adding amplitude. The swaying became visible to the naked eye. The deck tilted left, then right. The dump trucks, heavy with sand, began to slide. I saw the tires skid. Then came the sound. It didn't sound like metal. It sounded like a scream. A high-pitched, agonizing shriek that tore through the valley, echoing off the canyon walls. Crack, boom! A puff of dust exploded from the top of the north pylon. The main suspension cable casing had split. The cable hadn't snapped, not yet, but the protective housing had shattered under the torsional stress. The bridge dropped 3 feet in a split second. I dropped the binoculars. I didn't run to my truck. I walked. I walked with the focused, terrifying purpose of a man who knows the bomb has already started ticking. I grabbed my handheld radio, a Motorola I kept tuned to the construction frequency. "Mayday! Mayday!" Lucas's voice screamed through the static. He sounded young. He sounded terrified. "We have a structural failure on the North Main. Casing breach. Sensors are red. All units evacuate. Get the drivers out. Get the trucks off the bridge." "No," I said to the empty air. "Don't move them." I got into my old Ford. It smelled of sawdust and gasoline. I turned the key. It roared to life. I didn't take the road. I took the access trail, the dirt path the surveyors used. I floored it. The truck bounced and slammed over the ruts, but I kept my foot down. I reached the police barricade at the entrance to the bridge in 3 minutes. The scene was chaos. Sirens wailing, dust swirling. The bridge was groaning now, a rhythmic, deep-bellied moan that sounded like a dying whale. A young officer stepped in front of my truck, hand on his holster. "Sir, turn around. The area is unstable." I didn't stop. I slowed down just enough to not kill him, and swerved around the sawhorse barricade. "Hey!" I drove onto the approach span. I stopped 50 yards from the command trailer. I jumped out. The wind up here was fierce. It tore at my clothes. The bridge was moving. I could see it. It was snaking. The center span was twisting 5 degrees left, then 5 degrees right. Lucas was standing outside the trailer, screaming into his radio. "Reverse! All trucks! Reverse! Get off the deck! Now! Now!" The drivers were trying. I could hear the grinding of gears, engines revving. I ran to Lucas. He looked wild. His helmet was gone. His iPad was on the ground, screen shattered. "Grandpa!" He stared at me as if I were a hallucination. "Get out of here. It's going to collapse." "Stop the evacuation," I roared. My voice was louder than the wind. It was the voice of the Iron Ghost. "Tell them to stop." "Are you insane?" Lucas yelled, grabbing my shoulders. "The cable is shearing. We have too much weight. We have to unload." "If you move those trucks, you change the modal mass," I shouted back, grabbing his radio from his hand. "Right now, the trucks are pinning the center. They are acting as a dampener. If you move them to the ends, you free the center span. The twist will double. You will snap the torsion bar in 10 seconds. But it's failing, Lucas cried. Look at it. I looked. The bridge was doing a figure 8. It's aeroelastic flutter, Lucas. I pressed the transmit button on the radio. All drivers, this is... I hesitated. This is the project lead. Stop. Do not move. Put your brakes on. Kill your engines. Who is this? A confused driver's voice crackled back. The bridge is shaking apart. Do as I say, or you die, I barked. Park it. Lucas tried to grab the radio back. Grandpa, you're going to kill them. We need to reduce the load. I shoved Lucas back against the side of the trailer. I am 71, but I have hands that have bent rebar. Listen to me. I leaned in close, staring into his panicked eyes. You don't need to reduce the load. You need to disrupt the rhythm. You built a guitar string, Lucas. It's perfect. It's tight. It's singing the devil's note. And the wind is playing it. So what do we do? Lucas wept. Cut the cable. No, I said, looking at the line of trucks, then at the wind, then at the terrified face of my grandson. We tune it down. I keyed the radio again. We don't take weight off, I said, my voice calm now, cold as the river below. We add weight. Lucas, call the quarry. Get the reserve fleet. I want 20 more trucks, and I want them out there now. Lucas stared at me. More weight? The sensors say we're at critical stress. The sensors are measuring tension, I yelled. I am talking about harmonics. We need chaos, Lucas. We need to break the wave. Call the trucks. You want to add weight? Lucas looked at me with the desperate, wide-eyed stare of a man watching his career and 50 people plummet into a canyon. Grandpa, the tension cables are at 110% capacity. If we add mass, we snap the main line. You aren't snapping the line with mass, Lucas, I roared, grabbing the lapels of his high-visibility vest. You are snapping it with rhythm. The bridge is breathing. It's inhaling and exhaling in time with the wind. It's a tuning fork. You made it too perfect. It's symmetrical. The wind hits the north side. The bridge lifts. And because the south side is identical, it drops. It's a perfect harmonic loop. I pointed to the line of trucks, still parked dead center, shaking like frightened cattle. You have 50 trucks in a straight line, I said. That is a singular mass. It acts like a pendulum weight. We need to break the pendulum. We need chaos. We need to scatter the weight to disrupt the airflow. Mass damping, Lucas whispered. The engineering term finally pierced through his panic. You want to create a tuned mass damper out of dump trucks? I want to make the bridge ugly, I said. I want to make it heavy and uneven so the wind can't find a grip. Now give me a sledgehammer. A what? A sledgehammer. 10 pounds. And get me on that deck. I didn't wait for permission. I grabbed a heavy iron mallet from the tool rack on the side of the trailer. I walked past the police line. The wind on the approach span was ferocious. It wasn't just blowing, it was screaming. The bridge deck was heaving under my feet, a slow, nauseating roll that felt like the deck of a ship in a storm. I walked to the first vertical suspender cable. The steel rope was vibrating so fast it was a blur. It hummed with a terrifying, high-pitched whine. Thrum! I swung the hammer. I didn't hit it out of anger. I hit it with the precision of a piano tuner. Clang! The sound rang out, sharp and biting. It cut through the wind. F sharp, I muttered. Too high. It's too tight. I walked 10 yards to the next cable. Clang. F sharp. perfect pitch. God, Lucas, you built a machine. Lucas was running after me, struggling to keep his balance on the shifting deck. Grandpa, what are you doing? The sensors say the vibration is increasing. We're at 1.2 hertz. It's uniform, I yelled back. Every cable is tightened to the exact same spec. That's the problem. The computer balanced it perfectly, so when the wind hits one, it hits them all. I stopped at the mid-span torsion coupling. This was the critical point, the place where the bridge decides whether to twist or break. Radio the drivers, I commanded. I want the first 10 trucks to move forward 50 yards and park on the left lane. The next 10 trucks reverse 50 yards and park on the right lane. Zigzag them. Make a sawtooth pattern. That violates the loading manual, Lucas shouted. Asymmetrical loading puts torsion on the pylons. We need torsion on the pylons to counter the torsion from the wind, I screamed. Do it, or watch your friends die. Lucas looked at the bridge. He looked at the trucks sliding sideways. He looked at me. He grabbed his radio. All units, his voice cracked, then firmed up. Execute pattern delta. Zigzag formation. Odds left, evens right. Move. Now. The trucks roared to life. The sound of diesel engines drowned out the wind. Slowly, agonizingly, they began to move. The bridge groaned. It was a deep, metallic shriek, the sound of steel stretching beyond its yield point. It's getting worse, Lucas yelled as the deck tilted violently to the left. The sway is increasing. It has to get worse before it breaks the rhythm. I held onto the railing. Now, the turnbuckle. I knelt down at the base of the secondary suspension cable. A massive steel turnbuckle, the size of a fire hydrant, held the tension. Give me the wrench, I said to a frozen construction worker nearby. He stared at me. I snatched the 4-foot pipe wrench from his hands. Grandpa, don't! Lucas lunged for me. If you loosen that, we lose structural integrity on the north quadrant. We need a flat C, I grunted, fitting the wrench onto the nut. We need to detune the north side. If the north side is looser than the south, they won't vibrate in sync. They'll fight each other. The bridge will stop dancing and start wrestling. I pulled. My shoulder screamed. My bad knee burned. I was 71 years old, fighting 50 tons of tension. Help me, I roared at Lucas. Lucas hesitated for a fraction of a second. Then he grabbed the end of the wrench. Together, the old engineer and the young architect pulled. Creak. The nut turned. A quarter turn. Boom. The bridge dropped 6 inches on the north side. The sound was like a cannon shot. More! I yelled. We pulled again. Another quarter turn. The humming sound changed. The high-pitched F-sharp whine dropped. It became a low, dissonant growl. A flat C. I stood up, breathing hard. I looked at the trucks. They were parked in a jagged, ugly line. The weight was scattered. The aerodynamics were ruined. And the wind didn't know what to do. I felt it through my boots. The rhythmic heaving stopped. The bridge shuddered, confused. The wind pushed, but the north side absorbed it differently than the south side. The resonance collapsed. The standing wave shattered into 1,000 little chaotic vibrations that the dampers could handle. The swaying stopped. The bridge hung there, heavy, ugly, and still. Silence. The only sound was the idling of the truck engines and the distant wail of sirens. I dropped the wrench. It clanged against the composite deck. It's holding, Lucas whispered. He looked at his shattered iPad on the ground, then at the bridge. The harmonic, it's gone. You killed the note. I just changed the key, I said. wiping grease from my hands onto my pants. It's an ugly song now, but it's a safe one. I walked back toward the command trailer. My legs were shaking now. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind the cold ache of age. Inside the trailer, the air was still thick with panic. The monitors were flashing red and yellow, but the trend lines were flattening out. Lucas followed me in. He didn't say a word. He walked to the filing cabinet in the back. He pulled out a dusty, yellowed roll of blueprints. Not his blueprints, the original site surveys from the 1970s. He unrolled them on the desk. He looked at the geological cross-section of the canyon. I checked the soil density, Lucas murmured. I checked the bedrock depth, but I never looked at the wind shear historicals. He pointed to a signature box in the bottom right corner of the old survey. The ink was faded, blue ballpoint. Survey Chief, William J. Taggart, license number 4092. Date, October 14th, 1974. Lucas froze. He stared at the name. Then he looked up at me. Taggart? He whispered. William Taggart, the Iron Ghost. I sat down in a folding chair. I felt very tired. That was a lifetime ago, I said. We learned about you in structural dynamics, Lucas said, his voice filled with a sudden terrified awe. You're the engineer who predicted the '89 earthquake collapse. You tried to shut down the Embarcadero freeway 5 years before it fell. They said you were paranoid. They said you were too expensive. They said you vanished. I didn't vanish, I said. I just got tired of arguing with accountants about the price of rebar. I told the state this canyon was a wind tunnel 50 years ago. I told them you couldn't put a suspension bridge here without a truss stiffener. They didn't listen then. And when I saw your budget, I knew they weren't listening now. I pointed to the monitor showing the bridge. You used the grade 40 concrete for the pylons, didn't you? The cheap stuff. Quick drying. Lucas looked down, ashamed. It met the federal minimum standard. Minimum standard is for parking lots, Lucas, I said softly. Not for bridges. Not for things that carry lives. The door to the trailer opened. The police captain stuck his head in. We have the situation contained. Is the structure stable? Lucas looked at me. He was the project lead. It was his call. The structure is stable, Lucas said, his voice stronger now. Thanks to our senior consultant. The captain nodded and left. Lucas turned to me. Grandpa, Bill, I need you. We have to retrofit the dampers. We have to redesign the cable housing. I can't do it alone. I can run the software, but I can't hear the steel. Will you consult? I looked at the blueprints. I looked at the high-tech trailer. I looked at my grandson, who finally understood that engineering is a blood sport. I reached into my pocket. I pulled out my whittling knife. It was an old case knife, the handle worn smooth by decades of thumb rubbing. I placed it on the desk, on top of the millions of dollars of digital schematics. I don't build anymore, Lucas, I said. I just listen. I'm retired. But, no buts. I stood up. You know what to do now. You felt it. That fear? That vibration in your teeth? That is your new degree. Keep the knife. Why? Lucas asked, picking it up. Because wood has a grain, I said, walking to the door. And steel has a grain. And concrete has a grain. The computer doesn't feel the grain. It assumes the material is perfect. Nothing is perfect. Never build what you can't feel. I walked out of the trailer. The wind had died down. The sun was setting, casting a long shadow over the bridge. It looked different now. less elegant. The trucks were still parked in their jagged, ugly line. But it was standing. I didn't take my truck. I walked home. My knee hurt, but it was a good hurt. A reminder that I was still standing too. I reached my porch. The air was still. The river was calm. I sat down in my rocking chair. I looked at the railing. The glass of water was still there. I picked it up. The surface was perfectly flat, mirror smooth. No ripples, no harmonic, no devil's note. I took a sip. It was cool and clean. Finally, I whispered to the empty canyon. Silence.